Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Meh. I've got no rhythm, and today I'm going to give my response to the Booker longlist, which was announced this week, where I will come out with increasingly frivolous excuses for not reading the longlist. There are people who've done some really good videos where they go through the longlist and talk about each book and make them sound super exciting. I have in the past made videos about reasons why you don't have to read the shortlist. And that was 5 books that have been on the shortlist over the years that everyone's forgotten and were not significant literary works, in my opinion. But I don't hate the Booker Prize. I've been following the Booker Prize for around 40 years now. I literally this week I bought a copy of Hotel du Lac, which was the winner of the Booker Prize in 1981, 82, which I'd never read, and I thought, well, I'm going to take that and read it. I've loved the Booker. There have been years where I've read the entire. I've never read the whole long list, but there were years where I read the entire shortlist. I've read at least one book from the shortlist, probably in 80% of the years that the Booker has been Booker has been going, and I've read a good chunk of Booker Prize winners. I love the Booker Prize. It's introduced me to new authors all along my reading career. But I look at this long list. I don't think it's any more or less inspiring than any other, but I'm just trying to reduce the amount of books. So I say none of these reasons make much sense, but they make sense to me. I've got the list in front of me here, so I'm going to refer down to it on my phone and let you know what I think of it. So first up is A Spell of Good. This is the order that the Guardian put them in. I think this is alphabetical by author last name. Okay, A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. So I read Ms. Adebayo's first book, Stay With Me. This is actually, I ordered this secondhand from somewhere, and it's actually an ARC, which is a bit embarrassing because then when I met Miss Adebayo and asked her to sign it, I said, look, I'm really sorry, it's an ARC. In other words, she got no money for me having bought and read her book, and I was asking her to sign it, but she was very gracious, and she wrote me a lovely inscription, and I have it there. So on the positive side, I love all the diacritical marks on Miss Adebayo's in her name, first name and last name. You've got sort of fairly standard graves and acutes, but then over these O's, each one you've got like a grave accent and an underdot. So that's super impressive and must be really painful for everyone writing articles about this Booker long list. That's just going to tick everyone off. So I appreciate that. That's a plus point. But I read Stay With Me and was really unconvinced by it. So she was very sweet when I met her, and she spoke at this writers' festival in Jerusalem, and she was perfectly charming. I just wasn't super convinced by this book, and that's why I'm going to avoid probably reading A Spell of Good Things. Next on the list is Old God's Time by Sebastian Barry. So I looked up, I've never read anything by Sebastian Barry, and I was looking him up, and I saw this is his 11th novel. And for me to start reading it just because it's long listed and it's his 11th novel I've ever really read, I think I'm kind of prejudiced against his name. Not a big fan of the name Sebastian. Maybe it reminds me of Sebastian Faulks, who I'm still very angry with for Charlotte Gray. Loved Birdsong. I think it's one of the great First World War novels published, or something that I've read. And then I read Charlotte Gray, which really, really annoyed me and made me want to punch Sebastian Faulks. And I think Sebastian Barry may be suffering by that. Sebastian Barry is an Irish author. Turns out he went to Trinity College Dublin, which was my father's alma mater, and they may have been there around the same time. I'm not sure exactly how old Sebastian Barry is. His Wikipedia page declines to mention it. It's got his mother's age when she was born, so he may have been sort of 5-10 years after my father there, but that's it's just a by the by. I just don't think I'm going to start reading Sebastian Barry with this book. Sorry. Next up is Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. So this kind of intrigues me, and I like the look of this. The price at the moment is a little high. It's a good number of pages. That's also a factor, by the way, an entirely frivolous factor. If a book comes in under 200 pages that I'm unsure about, I'm much more likely to pick it up than a book that I'm unsure about, which is 350 pages. And okay, 200 pages, I can read that in an afternoon, and if I can get it for a good price, I'm going to do it. I've got an example of that coming up. So Study for Obedience, I think, is just around 200 pages, which is promising. Maybe not part of my grander books. Oh yeah, Sarah Bernstein was on the most recent list of authors under 40 that that Grant put out, and I like that list. I've used that list before, and so that's a sort of corroborating factor. She made the long list after she was put on this list of top 20 authors under 40. So that might sway me at some point. I'll probably keep an eye on Study for Obedience and see if I can find a good copy, or if the price comes down on Amazon, or if I can find a copy on eBay. That's something I may fiddle around with. If I Survive You by Jonathan Escoffery. This is described, I looked at this on Amazon, and it's described as hilarious. That's kind of a red flag in my book. I struggle with hilarious novels. The Sellout by Paul Beatty was supposed to be hilarious, and I did not love that book, and I didn't laugh out loud in the way that maybe I did with Percival Everett's The Trees. And then again, when I met Paul Beatty at the Jerusalem Writers' Festival a couple of years ago, he was so charming, it sort of made me reevaluate my attitude towards the book. But like with Stay With Me, I didn't have a great experience. And in general, I'm always worried about funny books. I think I've got a reasonable ear for comedy. I like to laugh. Funny books is a very fine line for me. And I have laughed during books in unexpected times, but that's kind of a worry. But I like the sound of that. If I may, again, it'll come down to finding it at the right price, and if there's buzz continues to build around it. If I Survive You by Jonathan Escoffery perhaps it makes the shortlist, I might pick that up. How to Build a Boat by Elaine Feeney. Another Irish author. Really, there's nothing about it. I hate that title, How to Build a Boat, which is as frivolous a reason as you can think of for avoiding a book. Just not giving me anything that I really... sorry, Ms. Feeney. Next up is This Other Eden by Paul Harding. Interesting, Paul Harding won the Pulitzer Prize over a decade ago. Came out of nowhere. It was published by a small press, so much so that when the announcement was made that he'd won the Pulitzer, the book sold out because there just weren't enough copies in circulation. I have a copy. I read it. I bought it at the time that it won. It says winner of the Pulitzer Prize, so it must have been just after it won, and this must have been one of the editions they were printing. Very small press. What's the name of the press? You can see it there. I can't remember what the letters stand for. BLP something. It was a local literary press. Like it was very. 1 second. Bellevue Literary Press, New York. So I read Tinkers at the time, and I buy this, May 2010, so 13 years ago, and sort of didn't get it. And the clue should be, even though I hadn't read her at that point, that the singular author blurbing on the front is Marilynne Robinson, who I've not really loved. I've read a couple of her books, so that should have been a red flag for me. Well, it would have been if I'd read her at that point. So I can't see myself reading another Paul Harding because this was just not my thing at all. Next up, Pearl by Sian Hughes. Sorry, I read all the blurbs, saw the number of pages, nothing really there that attracted me. This one, All the Bird Hearts by Victoria, with a K, Lloyd Barlow. Well, I'm sorry, everything about that, from the title, the twee title, all the little bird hearts. Bird Hearts is hyphenated. And Victoria, with a K, Lloyd Barlow, hyphenated. Everything about that is not something I wish to associate myself with. This is totally frivolous. I'm sure it's a marvelous novel. I'm sure she's a wonderful writer, but yeah, can't bring myself to it. Prophet Song by Paul Lynch actually was kind of interesting. Paul Lynch, another Irish writer. I like the typographic style on the cover of the book. Maybe not. In Ascension by Martin McInnes. It looks like a bit in the pictures of all the books lined up. It looks like it's really chunky. It's under 400 pages, maybe, but I'm not rushing, and I'm not going to pay £18 for it. Western Lane by Chetna Maru. So somebody, I think it might have been Eric Carl Anderson's video where he went through the list. He gave a really interesting blurb about immigrant experience in the UK, and then somehow they replaced they something to do with squash tournaments, something. So that sort of, I don't know which of the words in that word soup sort of piqued my interest, but I went and looked up and found a copy, and it's a brand new hardback that's selling for £10-12 on Amazon. I found a copy on eBay for £5.49, shipping included. and bought it. So that's wending its way right now to my friend in London, who will be here on the 10th of August. He's coming on holiday, and he's a pilot, so he has unlimited pilot with a well-known national carrier, and he has unlimited luggage allowance. So I just send all my books to him. Even though I have been on a book buying ban, my book buying ban is kind of officially ended. It was a personal decision for the first half of the year. I think it's done me really well. Circumstances have changed, and I just bought a load of books, which you'll hear about eventually. But this was one of them. I got it for £5.49 as a new hardback. I'm assuming it's someone's review copy or something that someone had. But at that price, I couldn't resist it, and it's also short. It's under 200 pages, so everything that was right in the sweet spot. So of all the books on the long list, that's the only one that right now I'm fully committing to reading. Next up is The Beasting by Paul Murray. So I read Skippy Dies. This is paperback, so this is from August 2011. I bought this. So I read this sort of 12 years ago. And it's also 650 pages. It had kind of secret history vibes, even though not from the colouring and the way it's designed, but the fact that we know on this, we know in the title, in Secret History, I think you find out on the first page what happens to one of the cast members. No spoilers. I love this, perhaps not as rapturously as other people did, but it's a solid, fun, chunky read. I'm just not sort of urgently running to read The Beasting. Again, maybe if it gets shortlisted, maybe if I find a copy, maybe I'll wait till it comes out and pay it back. It's not urgent. I've got other things that I want to read, like the new Zadie Smith comes out in September. I don't care that she's not on the long list. I've read all her other novels. I'm definitely going to read that as well. So The Beasting wasn't a high priority before it was on the long list. I don't think putting it on the long list increases its prioritization for me. And last on the long list is The House of Doors by Tan Twan Egg. And here's I didn't read either of his previous two novels. I think the one to read would have been the one before this, which was I can't remember what it's called. This is about Somerset Maugham, and I don't really know Somerset Maugham, so I don't think I would get the most out of reading The House of Doors. Plus, The House of Doors, probably the worst title on this list, in that it just sounds like it was AI generated. Give me a title for an imaginary Booker Prize novel, The House of Doors. Also, The Castle That Never Slept. What about How to Build a Boat? That's kind of there. Titles are really hard. It's something I would really struggle to come up with if I ever wrote anything. But The House of Doors just screams bland to me. Sorry, again, an utterly frivolous reason. Okay, that's the entire long list. I don't have much to say about what didn't make the long list. I said Zadie Smith's not on it. But here's the thing. I've never read Barbara Kinsolver. I have a copy of Demon Copperhead, which I'm going to take with me, I think, on vacation next week, even though it's a big, chunky book. I think I might read this, and my wife even might read this, because I've heard amazing things. It won the Pulitzer this year. It's won the Women's Prize. Hard for me to believe that it's not a better book than, let's be generous, 4 of the books on this list. Yeah, I don't say it has to be in the shortlist, but this much praise and this much sort of critical response. Yeah, the judges here are free to decide whatever they want. I think it's great. I love the way the Booker Prize services things. I'm not part of the hysterical must read the long list campaign. So good luck to anyone who is taking on the long list. Good luck to anyone who takes on the short list. As I say, I'm committed so far to reading 1. Last year, I also wasn't that into it. I ended up reading, I think, 4 or 5 of the long list, including 3 books in the short list, none of which won. So I haven't won the winner last year. But those 3 books, I had a fantastic time with each of them. So I'm not part of the hysteria, but I love following it. I'll put a whole link to all the videos, particularly Kieran's, who got all his daughters to review the copies of the books that he was sent in the post. And it's, I think, one of the great sticking a pin in the puffery of the Booker Prize hysteria, for which he is indeed at least partly responsible. So I love that video. And take care, enjoy, and live your best life. Bye.